society. And historically underrepresented voices and talents must come to the fore in the media and in the boardroom. But this policy has been called out as something quite different. Positive discrimination, which is in fact unlawful under the Equality Act of 2010. It's an outrage that our national broadcaster, funded to the tune of billions by hard-working Brits, should be discriminating against anyone. Whilst the BBC's output and staffing should be diverse, right now the message is clear: don't be a white bloke. How is that progress? Dr. Rakib Ehsan, an expert on social integration and part of the multi-ethnic pressure group Don't Divide Us, says that white Britons being woefully underrepresented in the BBC's flagship journalism training scheme is no surprise. He said, under the mantra of diversity, more and more young and aspirational white working class people in the regions will be left by the wayside. The bottom line is that discrimination is wrong, whatever your skin colour. And diversity, which remains a critically important principle, has become an ideology which often has the opposite effect. Your funding for a PhD shouldn't be based upon your ethnic background. Your place on a BBC journalism course shouldn't be based on skin colour. Your employment in a public or private sector job should not be based on your gender identity, your sexual orientation, or your religion. Who bloody cares? This box-ticking works against merit and is therefore patronising to minority groups, and works strongly against Martin Luther King's dream of a colourblind society. The BBC is sailing very close to the wind legally, and that is a national scandal. But it's endemic in the media, in the public sector, and in our corporations. The brilliant actor John Nettles, remember him? He played Bergerac in the hit BBC series in the 1980s, said this weekend that when that programme was originally made, actors were employed on the show for their talent. It wasn't about inclusivity. The public are sick of this, of course. Talented Brits of all backgrounds don't want positive discrimination. They don't want equality of outcome. They want equality of opportunity and the lifting of barriers, not more barriers, and the ideology of two wrongs making a right. The pushback on this divisive nonsense is strong. Here is the very popular US comedian Jerry Seinfeld dealing with an interviewer who complained that there were too many white men on his show. Well, Jerry Seinfeld's response is delicious.
I have noticed that most of the guests are mostly white males of 22 episodes that you've had.
Yeah, let's get into that.
No, but you...
Take a look over here, Peter. What do you see? A lot of whiteys. What's going on here? Oh, this really pisses me off. But go ahead. Really pisses me off. People think it's the census or something. I mean, this has got to represent the actual pie chart of America. Who cares? It's just funny. You know, funny is the world that I live in. You're funny, I'm interested. You're not funny, I'm not interested. Okay. And I have no interest in gender or race or anything like that, but everyone else is kind of with their little calculating, is this the exact right mix? You know, I think that's, to me, it's anti-comedy.
What a hero. I love these figures who speak out. And promoting his new Netflix comedy film this week, Seinfeld is once again in the news with this rant about political correctness destroying comedy. Of course he's right.
Nothing really affects comedy. People always need it. They need it so badly, and they don't get it. It used to be you would go home at the end of the day, most people would go, oh, Cheers is on, oh, MASH is on, oh, Mary Tyler Moore is on, All in the Family's on. You just expected, there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant stuff. In the end, talent in this country and around the world is spread equally across all backgrounds, races, religions and cultures, which is why opportunity must be equal too. which is why the so-called DEI policies, diversity, equity and inclusion, are so wrong. Nobody should be discriminated against for their skin colour. They should be discriminated against for being a weak candidate. And positive discrimination should only be deployed for the people best suited to do the job. Do you really want the brain surgeon that's operating on your cerebral cortex being a diversity hire? Do you want the airline pilot transporting you at 36,000 feet to be the product of box ticking rather than ability, qualifications and experience? I think I know the answer. In the end, diversity policies are not diverse, and inclusivity seeks to exclude. The BBC is there to bring our nation together and to deploy all of its talents. But right now, it's fast becoming the weakest link. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. I'll get to your messages shortly, but first, tonight's top pundits. I'm delighted to have broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov, model, TV personality and legend Diana Moran, and the brilliant political commentator and journalist Benedict Spence. Great to see all three of you here. Diana Moran, your reaction to this box-ticking exercise at the BBC?
It's just dreadful. I mean, at the end of the day, the basic thing is talent. You've either got talent or you haven't got talent. Doesn't matter what colour you are, what age you are either. It's the talent that really matters, and this really makes me cross. Diversity, equality and inclusion. It isn't, is it?
It isn't. I mean, that's my issue, Benedict, is that diversity increasingly is not diverse. Inclusivity seeks to exclude.
One of the, I suppose I'd have a little bit more sympathy with what the BBC is doing is if it was protecting one of the things it used to do very well, which was its foreign services, its foreign language services, was providing information to people around the world who couldn't necessarily rely on the state media that they had to consume. From that perspective, I'd entirely understand if they were trying to appeal to and hire a broad range of journalists from different ethnic backgrounds who perhaps spoke different languages, had better understandings of local cultures, but that's not what they're doing. They're actively cutting back on those services, to which you then have to sort of ask, well, what exactly is all of this for? Is it to just sort of make yourself feel better? If actually you're not diversifying your output and the quality of that, and you're not trying to appeal to as many audiences, and I hate the expression soft power, but the BBC was one of the very few examples that I think you could say was a good example of British soft power. If you're not actually leaning into that, what's the point of this diversity other than to make the higher-ups feel good? OK, Nina, what do you think about this story?
Well, of course, talent is the most important thing. And firstly, we don't know that these people might be the most talented. We absolutely do not know that. And if you're also complaining about the percentage of women involved, well, frankly, welcome to our world as women. For centuries, literally centuries, we have been discriminated against in the workplace. It's only the last couple of decades that things are balancing out, and it's still not balanced yet. The world is run by middle-aged white men, basically.
But the bottom line is that Britain is populated by a lot of middle-aged white men. I mean, this is what's forgotten in these diversity policies, is that 75% of the population is non-ethnic.
Yes, but there's a very nuanced, slanted report in The Telegraph. What we're talking about is not the entire BBC training scheme. This is a course where there have only been 39 people on it, so it's a tiny percentage. It's also, what it doesn't actually point up, but I've got the figures here, it says that if we're talking about skin colour, it says that individuals from British, Asian, minority and ethnic backgrounds made up 41%, but a further 23% were classed as other white. And so, you know, this could be Australian, New Zealand, American, Canadian, Irish. Well, the way they write it, though, is very inflammatory. It says Roma, white gypsy, Irish traveller, white Irish and white Polish. Now, if that's not discriminatory on the part of the BBC, of the Telegraph, I don't know what is. And I think that what the Telegraph have done in that paragraph is utterly shameful.
OK, well, look, opinion is running very high on that. The BBC have responded. They have said our apprenticeships provide a vital route into the media for people from a range of backgrounds, and we aim to reflect, represent and serve all parts of the UK in our workforce, both in news and across the BBC. But next up in the big story, a shock new poll suggests Sir Keir Starmer will fail to win an overall majority at the next election. Could the Tories achieve the unthinkable and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat? I'll be speaking to someone who's been where the Tories are and done it before. That's next.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
And I did want to give you a platform, but I also want to give you an opportunity to apologise to anyone that you might hurt, and also give a message now to people who might want to copy some of the things that you've done, because people have copied it. So is there anything you'd like to say about that?
So the first thing you addressed, yeah, I do want to say sorry, because I did say sorry in the BBC interview, and that's the only thing they put out as a clip. So I don't know why they tried to do that, but I'll say it again on GB News here. I apologise to all the victims in the past that I've may have caused distress to, may have harassed, may have mentally tormented in any type of way. I apologise to them because I didn't mean to do that, and I was just having fun at the moment, but I didn't realise that it would have negative repercussions and negative effects on their psychological, way of thinking. So I apologise for that. And also, the one thing I have to say to young people is social media isn't real. What I've portrayed to the guys on the internet is that I'm this cool, I don't give a toss about anything. But me as a person, I really do care. And for people I don't really read comments on the internet, because if I was to do that, I would probably go into a depressive state. All I can say to you guys is believe in yourself, and there's bigger things you can do out there than just being an absolute menace on the internet or being antisocial. If you have ambitions, I like to read, I like music. I want to go deeper into my passion so I understand me as a person and not what other people think I am.
You are an articulate young man. You are obviously intelligent as well when you talk like this. And I really hope, for your sake and for the sake of a lot of people who did take a negative influence from what you did initially, that you really don't go back down that route.
I have a child as well, and I have to be there, not just for me, but for my child, for my child's mother, for my mother. I have to be there for a lot of people. It's not just me. So I need to put in the work.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion and a scandalous set of allegations around discrimination at the BBC. I'll get to your feedback in just a moment. But first, the big story. And a shock new projection from Sky News, using the latest figures from Thursday's local elections, suggests that Britain is heading for a hung parliament. Based upon results from 2 million council wards and projecting those voting figures into a nationwide estimate, Labour is on course to be the largest party in parliament, but will fall short of a Commons majority by 32 seats. With 6 months to go until a likely November election, could the Tories achieve the unthinkable, drag themselves out of the gutter and snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat? Let's speak to someone who's been there and is the proud owner of the T-shirt, former government minister and Conservative MP Edwina Currie. Edwina, a good set of results for Labour on Thursday, but perhaps not good enough. You would expect them to be able to form an overall majority at this stage.
Yeah, well, the polls have been saying that they were 20 points or more ahead. And actually, when people turned out to vote on Thursday, they weren't. They were only about 9% ahead, which is a very substantial difference. And it does look as if Labour have got one or two problems, which, you know, I grieve over, obviously, as a a lifelong member of the Conservative Party. One very obvious one is that they are losing Muslim voters in droves because of their stance, in my humble opinion, their correct stance on opposing Hamas, a terrorist organization, and really recognizing what caused the issues in Israel and Gaza and taking a firm view on that. Now, this mark gives Keir Starmer real headaches. That's why he's lost the Oldham by-election. It's also why they very nearly lost the West Midlands mayoralty. I gather the result is only really in a handful of votes, and that it would have been great if Andy Street had won it. But the fact is that we have to look at why we've seen such changes there. And Starmer's real problem, I think, is that if he tries to win back those Muslim votes, as Jess Phillips is suggesting, then he's going to be accused of anti-Semitism all over again. And that's what he's worked so hard to get rid of from the Corbyn era. So he's got a really interesting dilemma. And given that Starmer is actually not much of a politician, I think I might sit back and watch him perhaps making a bit of a mess of it. Moreover, he's then going to have to answer questions of, well, if this is going to be the result, you're going to have to be in a coalition with the Lib Dems, aren't you? How's that going to modify your policies? And it does mean that the Conservatives are in a better position than I think we suspected we might be at the beginning of the week. It really makes it quite entertaining.
Well, it does bring popcorn. Of course, Keir Starmer would argue that he's an excellent candidate to be Prime Minister, given his commanding lead in the polls. John Major, Edwina, pulled off an unlikely victory in 1992. You were part of that winning campaign. Could Rishi Sunak do the same later this year?
Oh, of course he could. I mean, you know, polls are polls. This election on Thursday gives us some clues. It didn't include Scotland, so a great deal is going to happen up there, depending on whether the SNP implode, and if so, where those votes go. And of course, there's a strong Muslim vote in some of the towns and cities up there as well. So we don't know. But there's all to play for. You know, back in 2019, we had a summer election with the European elections that nobody wanted to be involved in. And the Tories won 9%. It was pathetic. It was awful. Yeah. And then we went on to win the general election in 2019 very comfortably indeed, with a very substantial majority. It depends a little bit, I suspect, on what the dividing lines are, what we actually choose to fight on, and whether the economy has continued to improve, whether people feel comfortable, whether they really want to go into the unknown with Starmer and well, we do not know what the policy is going to be on the Middle East or on other aspects that affect people's lives here.
Now, Edwina, ominously, Labour have won the West Midlands mayoral contest. Let's take a listen.
And I do hereby declare that Richard Parker is duly elected.
Now, the previous Conservative incumbent, Andy Street, was an admired figure. The Conservative Party's brand was taken off the campaign literature, but he didn't quite manage to stay in post. Does his departure and does that loss put pressure on Rishi Sunak?
Well, it was so close, wasn't it? I mean, they spent all day recounting. They must be absolutely exhausted. Yeah. And I think Andy Street has done a very, very good job of being mayor there. And you haven't mentioned, of course, that Ben Hoochin up in Teesside absolutely romped home with a very big majority. Not as big as the previous occasion, but still very handsome indeed. And it does show if you have really good candidates, and we do, then they get through, they cut through to the voters. Voters actually very often will vote for the individual and for what they want to see continue. So we'll have to see how that pans out.
Now, Rishi Sunak has 6 months to audition for the job of our next Prime Minister, so to speak, Edwina. What does he need to do? What needs to happen?
I think Rishi and the Chancellor, and in fact most of the Cabinet, I admire them very much indeed. They're good and decent people. there's something in me that says, do you know what? That's lovely. That's exactly what we want. People who put the welfare of the country first. We're trying to make sure that the economy actually continues to improve. It's extremely hard to do. I know people, activists in my own patch here, who want us to cut taxes and raise interest, who raise income tax thresholds and do something about care. Now, there's a conflict there. If you want to do something about care, then you have to raise the money. There's no thin air that you can spend. What is really refreshing is to have in Rishi and in Jeremy Hunt the honesty that says, look, we have to have sound money first. We have to have the money in the bank first before we can spend it. That's not what we get from Labour. We get lots of promises they're going to spend money on this, that, and the other. And where's it going to come from in the end? Put your hand in your pocket, Mark. That's where it'll come from. It comes from the taxpayer. That's something Margaret Thatcher always understood. It used to be widely understood in the country at large. It's something that Rishi really has tried to say to people, and he's right. And hopefully that will cut through, it will have its effect, and we will get to where we want to be, which is with a working majority at the end of this year.
Edwina, great to have you on the show. I understand you're joining us in the studio next weekend.
I am. I'm going to be sat there and, oh my goodness, let's hope nothing awful happens between now and then. Hey, Mark?
It's not going to happen, not on your watch. Edwina, can't wait to see you in the flesh. My viewers and listeners always enjoy your contributions to the show. My thanks to former government minister and broadcaster Edwina Currie, who does join us next week as one of my top pundits. Now, what do you imagine a Green Party election victory looks like? Hippie types? Something about recycling? Carbon emissions? No, this.
We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar.
Blimey, Caroline Lucas has let herself go. Is Britain now in the grip of extremist politics? We'll debate that next.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours or so, a bit of a north-south split with the weather cloudy and damp in the north, some clear spells leading to sunshine and showers in the south. So it's all thanks to low pressure dominating the weather pattern through the bank holiday weekend. This area of low pressure giving some longer spells of rain perhaps in the south on Monday, but through the rest of the evening and overnight, very slow changes with our weather. It stays cloudy across the northern half of the UK with outbreaks of rain. A few heavier bursts possible. Clearer south, generally dry. Some mist and fog patches forming under light winds. And then by the end of the night, this weather system moving into the southwest. And as we go through the day on Sunday, it just slowly pushes its way northwards, introducing some showery outbreaks of rain. Through the central swathe of the UK, it generally stays dry with some sunny spells. Cloudier further north. Drier though, but there will be a few heavy showers that develop, particularly across northeast Scotland. Temperatures generally in the range of 16 to 18, but locally 19 or 20 in the best of the sunshine. For bank holiday Monday, a bit of a mixed picture, some showery outbreaks of rain possible across southern counties of England. This trying to break up during the day into sunny spells and showers, and that's the forecast for many parts, sunshine and showers, temperatures lifting generally into the high teens once more. Tuesday into Wednesday, high pressure starts to build in, temperatures start to rise.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com, keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Well, a big reaction to the big story. I've just been speaking to Edwina Curry about whether the Tories can be victorious at the next election against all the odds. gbnews.com/your say. And Dave Clark is not happy about what's happened in the West Midlands. Andy Street has gone, a brilliant mayor, says Dave. What a mess. Sunak and the 60 or so men in grey suits in the Tory party who ousted Boris should hang their heads in shame. Let's not beat about the bush. This all started when they ousted Boris. And how about this from Meghan? The Conservatives need to be conservative over the next 6 months. Decrease illegal and legal immigration drastically, reduce taxes, grow the economy, increase defence and tighten up postal voting. Although Lee responds no chance. They've had 14 years and failed under 5 different prime ministers. And last but not least, Adrian, who is a GB News member, says, "Good evening, Mark. I'm so sad that Andy Street has gone. That's because of Sunak's government, not Andy's fault." OK, folks, now let's get to our next big story. Don't forget, Prince Harry at 10 o'clock. I'll be arguing that he should have a hero's welcome when he returns next week to the UK. Find out why at 10. I think you'll be interested. I think you'll be surprised. But next up, a Green Party candidate shouted Allahu Akbar after being elected to Leeds City Council, whilst his supporters unfurled a Palestinian flag behind him. Motin Ali, who won the Gipton and Hare Hill seat with 3,000 votes, said his election to the council was a win for the people of Gaza. Delivering a victory speech after the result was announced, he said people are fed up of being let down by a Labour council, and concluded by saying, "We will not be silenced. We will raise the voice of Gaza and Palestine." Take a listen.
Of being neglected by this rotten fucking council. Look at the language you're using. Back off. Don't you back to the win. Don't you back to the Hales and Gibson. This is a win for the people of Gaza who have been neglected. We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar.
Why has the Green Party got a position on the conflict in Gaza? And do they now expect bin liners to be black, green and red? I've got to say, this seems to be a serious matter. Does this story suggest that Britain is now in the grip of extremist politics, with our democracy now influenced by a foreign conflict thousands of miles away? Let's get reaction from my top pundits. Model and TV personality Diana Moran, political commentator Benedict Spence and broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov. Benedict Spence, should we be worried? Your reaction to that video, which has gone viral.
Worried at this stage, perhaps not so much, but it is concerning, but it's also not surprising. For a very long time, the Labour Party got a lot of support in certain Muslim communities in this country because the Labour Party was the most powerful party in that area that people moved to, not because those people necessarily agreed with its ideology. We've got to talk specifically here about communities from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kashmir and Bangladesh. That's how politics works there. You join the party, you join the power broker, you join the big player that is the most powerful one there, because that's how you get things done. But if you were to think actually more broadly about, the Labour Party's sort of position on social issues, it couldn't be more diametrically opposed to what actually a lot of these people believes. And you see that in the way that George Galloway has very successfully been able to become an MP again by appealing to economically left-wing policies, but socially quite conservative policies. He's got an interview out somewhere else this weekend where he talks about his views on homosexuality. No doubt that is going to chime very well with his voters, with certain parts of his constituency in Rochdale. What's happened here is that the Labour Party has taken a particular stance on Gaza, which for some reason is incredibly important to people from across the world, but who are not actually from that part of the world. They've taken a stance on this. A lot of people within the party are very upset about this, certainly within the Muslim community. I say the Muslim community, aspects of the Muslim community. And so they are looking for ways to make their displeasure felt. And you've seen this with people joining George Galloway's Workers' Party of Britain. In this instance, we've seen somebody joining the Green Party. Again, very socially liberal party, very, very different, actually, from what a lot of people in the Muslim communities around Britain would actually adhere to. They're using whatever vehicle they can to apply pressure on Sir Keir Starmer to show their displeasure. Is this a dangerous thing? Long term, it could be a very dangerous trend. I always say this, is that this is what's happening now because Gaza is in the news now, but what actually happens if there's a war between India and Pakistan? Actually, we have huge Hindu and Muslim communities from the subcontinent in this country. What would happen if they were to start applying pressure on political parties to take sides along a nuclear conflict in that part of the world? That would be very, very dangerous. But the flip side to this is the Conservative Party has lost a lot of support to Labour from other minority communities. So Nigerian Christians, for example, tend to be, certainly in London, actually far more likely to lean Conservative. Actually, those sort of other minority communities, Christian communities around the country especially, they are leaving the Conservatives because of how badly the Conservatives have done. So it sort of balances itself out. It's something that could very much be a threat to Labour in the future. For the time being, it's not existential.
I just find these scenes unedifying at the count for local elections in the UK, with this man ranting about a conflict thousands of miles away, Diana.
It's really very frightening to watch. Moton Ali, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, he's very well-spoken. I mean, he's able to get across to the people very, very well. And yes, I mean, he is fighting for the freedom in other parts of the world. It is anti-Semitic, I think. I think it's very concerning. We all know there's death and destruction going on across there, and we all would love it to come to an end somehow. But, I find this very frightening in the middle of England.
I think so. I mean, here's a comment from Konstantin Kissin, a broadcaster and author, Nina. Multi-ethnic societies work if people assimilate. That's the only way they can work. An elected official shouting Allah Akbar and going on about a foreign conflict in his first speech is what the utter failure of multiculturalism looks like.
Well, it's very unedifying. I have to agree with that. But I disagree with Diana in that I don't think it is anti-Semitic, because it's always important to recognise the difference between the Netanyahu government, the Israeli people and Jewish people. It is not the same thing. It's much more nuanced than that. And I find that, Keir Starmer is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. He is in a position of, being the sort of the heir apparent to Prime Minister, as it were. So he has to prove to our masters, the American government, who dictate the political stance that we take on Gaza. But if he, the leader of the opposition, in normal terms, is free to take a completely different view from the government, and very often does so, and that's a wonderful freedom to have. But when it's this stage to an election, and when he might well be the next Prime Minister, he cannot go against Biden and what the Biden government want. And this is in the same way that Rishi Sunak had to adhere to what Biden wanted. And I find this. I almost feel sorry for him, because he's worked very hard to rid the Labour Party of the whole anti-Semitic feeling that there was. He's seen off the left for the moment, and here he's in a situation where he's in a complete cleft stick.
Right, but what's this conflict in Gaza got to do with the Green Party?
No,
why aren't they talking about recycling and carbon emissions?
Because we see it every night on our televisions, and it's not just us. It's not just the Green Party there. It's if you look at the American campuses, they're aflame. The university is in Paris and throughout France, and even our kind of rather, sloth-like lot are kind of moving themselves a bit. You know, universities used to be, hotbeds of revolt and protest.
Yeah.
And for decades they haven't at all. And now they're suddenly stirring themselves because it's a dreadful situation. You're seeing 35,000 people.
I think nobody disagrees that it's a dreadful situation, but people would also point out the hypocrisy that there are any number of actually, frankly, worse conflicts happening, especially in the Muslim world, that you hear absolutely nothing about. And the point is that in this incident, it might not be an individual who's anti-Semitic, but there is an anti-Semitic strain in the fact that, what's happening in Sudan, which is a genocide, what's happening in Rakhine, which is a genocide, what's happening in Xinjiang, which is a genocide, what happened to the Yazidis, which is a genocide, what's happening in Azerbaijan, which is ethnic cleansing. Nobody cares about these things, absolutely not. It is only when it is the world's only Jewish state that responds when it is attacked that people care. It is not genocide because losing a war that you started is not genocide. That is the long and short of it. I'm sorry.
I disagree with that in the fact that if the Israelis had allowed humanitarian aid to go in from the beginning, they are now allowing more in. But the fact is they cut off water.
They warned Gazans in North Gaza at the very beginning of this conflict.
They told the people in northern Gaza to go south, and then they bombed south.
No, they bombed the north, and now that they are... How many weeks have we been waiting for the invasion of Rafah to happen? It's still not happened yet.
Over 35,000, mostly
How many Hamas? How many Hamas? You never hear that. You never hear how many Hamas.
Feelings are running high on this one. Mark Dolan tonight is the home of diverse opinion. My pundits will be back at 10 o'clock. But next up, what does it take to become a winner? I'll be asking my Mark Meets guest, Olympic sprinting legend Iwan Thomas, who also reveals how he nearly lost his first baby son to a devastating infection. He tells his extraordinary story next.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, a woman who 25 years ago, at the age of just 14, tortured and killed her 71-year-old grandmother was last month released from prison on licence.
But this isn't the first time she's been let out. Sarah Davey has been bailed and reincarcerated no less than 7 times.
Well, to debate this, we're joined by former Detective Chief Inspector Colin Sutton, famed for catching the notorious killer of Millie Dowler, Levi Belfield, and GB News' own Patrick Christie's.
I think we have to qualify that where the killer is a child, and we have to accept that to consign somebody to be in prison for 60, 70 or 80 years is probably something that we ought to think twice about. So I understand why this happens. I understand the outrage. I really understand the outrage. I think that 14-year-olds who kill should be given a chance to rehabilitate? Yes, I do. Do I think that somebody who's had 7 such chances and blown them away deserves an 8th chance? Then probably I think that's a lot more doubtful.
I would have thought that by chance, sort of 3 or 4, they'd have got the picture, but clearly not. Patrick, what do you make of it all?
Well, some people are born evil, aren't they? And why should we have to suffer to have them back out on the streets? There are some crimes that are so serious that you should pay for it either with your life or for the rest of your life. This was a sadistic murder, the details of which absolutely cannot be read out on air at this particular time of day. There are 3 issues here. Is this justice for the families of victims? I just think a release like this is a slap in the face, really, to us all. It's another example of soft justice. And just because she's a child, well, she was old enough to commit the heinous crime she committed.
Join me, Camilla, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A big reaction on the message board to our last debate about a Green candidate shouting Allahu Akbar at the local elections. This from Michelle, who says, why don't these people go and live in Gaza? If they're that bothered, it's ridiculous. The elections are about who is governing this country, not Palestine. OK, now at 10 o'clock in My Take at 10, I will be arguing that Prince Harry deserves a hero's welcome next week. Find out why at 10. But first, Mark Meads. And this evening, the legendary Welsh sprinter Iwan Thomas, who represented Great Britain and Northern Ireland at the Olympic Games and the Commonwealth Games, breaking records in the 400 metres and the 4x400 metres relay, becoming a world, European and Commonwealth champion. With a string of TV appearances to his name, including a stint on Strictly and Dictionary Corner on Countdown, Iwan was awarded an MBE in 1998. He's also looking forward to the release of his upcoming autobiography, Brutal, which promises to spill the beans on his remarkable career and his remarkable life. Iwan Thomas, welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Your sprinting record is incredible. Were you a quick child?
Yeah, I was one of those annoying kids who was pretty cheeky in the classroom, but I got away with it because I was the boy who represented the school in, athletics, cross country, rugby, football, you name it. Yeah, I was just full of energy. I was never tested for ADHD, but I definitely had something going on. And my parents just pushed me into sport, trying to burn me out, really, try and get some energy out. And I discovered athletics, a bit of a weird twist of fate, really. So my parents moved abroad for my dad's job, and I had to go to boarding school, which I didn't want to do for my A-levels. And my older brother had gone to that school and he held the 100-metre record. And I thought, I'm going to try and beat the 100-metre record. And I thought, do you know what? Why don't I try and do 5 events? And that's basically what I set out to do. I did 5 events and I won all 5 events and broke all the 5 school records, 4 of which still stand, which is remarkable considering it was 30 odd years ago. So yeah, and luckily for me, that head of PE just thought, this kid's got something, let's push him in the right direction. And if it hadn't been for that PE teacher, Kevin Johnston, then I wouldn't have been an athlete. So I'm very grateful to him, really, and the school.
Well done, Mr. Johnston. Listen, looking forward to the release of the book in September, Brutal. Can you tell us about what you've had to sacrifice to get to the top in sport?
Well, I think it's not just sport. Like anyone who's successful in life, you have to make sacrifices, and it's tough. I'm not going to complain about my life. Sport has been remarkably good to me, but also it has broken me as well. I had 3 or 4 good years, and then my body just kept breaking through training. And that's why the book is called Brutal, because, to run the 400 metres, anyone who's ever run it will understand it's a brutal event. It's really, really challenging, but actually the training is much harder than actually racing. So if you look at the likes of myself, before me, David Grinley, Roger Black, Derek Redmond, we all only had about 3 or 4 good seasons, and then our bodies let go on us. So yeah, the book really looks into my childhood and, what made me want to become successful in sport. And I hate losing at anything I do, and I kind of look into myself a little bit in the book, really, and think, is that something I was born slightly maybe different to my brother, or is it just something that was installed into me through sports day? I don't know, but yeah, I'm really proud of the book, and I never really wanted to do an autobiography. I just thought, no, I don't really want to do it. But now that I'm a father, I've actually just thought I'd like to leave something for my boys to remember me by. And I know this sounds quite morbid, but I'm doing an audio book as well, and purely for me, I think it'd be lovely when I'm long gone, hopefully in years to come yet, but my boys can say, oh, our old man was all right. Let's listen to his voice. Let's put his book on. So that's the reason I've done the book, really, for my boys to understand what I did once as an athlete.
Well, I think your boys are going to be very proud, not just of the athlete and their father, but the guy that you've been as well. Can you tell me about your mental health struggles? You have had a difficult time. You've been very open about that.
Yeah, well, I think when things are going well in life, it's all rosy. And my athletics career, as I said, was good to me, but it was also really quite hard for me mentally to take. I had 3 years, and then suddenly my body at the age of 24, it couldn't handle more than 2 days training a week. And I went through many years where I didn't open up, I didn't talk about it, because there I was, in my opinion, to my mates and my training group, you know, I've been relatively successful, you know, I had nice cars, a nice house, whatever, materialistic rubbish. That doesn't matter now. But at the time, I felt I couldn't go to my friends and say, look, I'm really struggling here. I'm injured again. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, because I thought they'd say, well, you've done all right. Don't worry about it. So, you know, I bottled it up for a long, long time. And it was only actually, it sounds a bit strange, flipping hamburgers with Prince Harry, a charity barbecue, that I started opening up to him about the mental health issues I've had. And, you know, for all the good years I had in athletics, I had many more dark years. And it took me a long time, really, even after retirement, to accept what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I'm in a good place now. And I think fatherhood has taught me to learn, really. Athletics was just a small part of my life. I think everything I've been through, good and bad, I hope has made me a better person and a better father, and that's all I want to do, is be the best dad to my boys, really.
Most definitely. A quick word on your boys. Your eldest, Teddy, was born a healthy child, but there were shocking health issues. Group B streptococcal infection. Briefly, if you can, Ewan, what happened?
Yeah, we'd never heard of it before. The midwives never warned us, but 1 in 4 women will naturally carry this bacteria, and if you have it, you can pass it on to the child through birth. So basically, he was born. Everything was great. I went home. 4 hours later, I get a panic call saying he's in intensive care. He's not breathing. I was like, how? He was perfect. And he spent 10 days in intensive care fighting for his life. And we were so fortunate to bring him home, and with no real lasting side effects. He has a few health issues, but unfortunately, 1 in 10 babies, even after hospital treatment with Strep B, will still die. And most will have cerebral palsy or other, you know, health issues. So we're very lucky.
Well, I know that you're a big supporter of the charity Group B Strep Support. Ewan, come and see us in September when the book comes out. Next up in My Take at 10, Prince Harry. You won't want to miss it.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours or so, a bit of a north-south split with the weather cloudy and damp in the north, some clear spells leading to sunshine and showers in the south. So it's all thanks to low pressure dominating the weather pattern through the bank holiday weekend. This area of low pressure giving some longer spells of rain perhaps in the south on Monday, but through the rest of the evening and overnight, very slow changes with our weather. It stays cloudy across the northern half of the UK with outbreaks of rain. A few heavier bursts possible. Clearer south, generally dry, some mist and fog patches forming under light winds, and then by the end of the night, this weather system moving into the southwest. And as we go through the day on Sunday, it just slowly pushes its way northwards, introducing some showery outbreaks of rain. Through the central swathe of the UK, it generally stays dry with some sunny spells. Cloudier further north. Drier though, but there will be a few heavy showers that develop, particularly across northeast Scotland. Temperatures generally in the range of 16 to 18, but locally 19 or 20 in the best of the sunshine. For Bank Holiday Monday, a bit of a mixed picture, some showery outbreaks of rain possible across southern counties of England. This trying to break up during the day into sunny spells and showers, and that's the forecast for many parts, sunshine and showers, temperatures lifting generally into the high teens once more. Tuesday into Wednesday, high pressure starts to build in, temperatures start to rise.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The next Great British Giveaway winner could be you, with a massive £20,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Imagine how you'd react getting that winning call from us.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox, and I won the Great British Giveaway. I'd say, why not? What is it? The price of a text and £2 to enter. And if I can win it, anybody can win it. And they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Well, director Josh tells me that it's 10 o'clock. So, on television, on radio and online, in the United Kingdom and across the world, this is Mark Dolan Tonight. In My Take at 10, Prince Harry returns to the UK next week. This will surprise you, but I think he should have a hero's welcome. Find out why shortly. As it's reported that Meghan Markle will not come to the UK next week for fear of being booed by British crowds, I'll get reaction from the Queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits, including news that the West Midlands mayoral contest has gone to Labour. So a packed show, lots to get through. Mark Dolan Tonight is your perfect Saturday night in. And we start with news headlines and Sam Francis.
Mark, thank you very much and good evening to you. It's just gone 10 o'clock and we start with the latest news that Sir Keir Starmer is now celebrating Labour's win in the West Midlands tonight, calling the election result there a phenomenal result. Richard Parker defeated Conservative Andy Street after a partial recount tonight. He secured the win by just 1,508 votes. That's a margin of 0.25%. Well, speaking after his win was announced, Richard Parker said that the shock result shows people, he says, are calling for Labour and calling for change. Well, Labour's also celebrating success today in Liverpool, South Yorkshire and in West Yorkshire, and in Greater Manchester, where Andy Burnham was re-elected today. He picked up just over 63% of that vote, and he said he'll always give his best to the job.
Overwhelmed to have so many people prepared to put their trust in me is overwhelming, it's humbling, and I recognise that people who vote for other parties at a general election have lent me their support, and it's why I will be very, very rigid in taking a place first rather than a party first approach. It seems to me that's what the role of the mayor is all about, bringing people together, get everybody pulling in the same direction for a great city region like this one, and that's what I will be doing.
Well, it means that Labour have now claimed all but one of the positions up for grabs in England's mayoral elections. Earlier today in London, Sadiq Khan beat his nearest rival, Conservative candidate Susan Hall, piling yet more pressure on the Prime Minister ahead of the general election. Mr Khan insists he's keeping positive.
It's Londoners who inspire me every day to continue our mission of building a fairer, safer and greener London. And in what I hope will be a year of great change. A future Labour government led by Keir Starmer working with us in City Hall will mean we can go much further and accomplish so much more.
And let's get a final look at those results in the local elections across England tonight. Here's how they stand at 10 o'clock this evening. Hundreds of different contests have been held across England and Wales, including the election of local councillors and choosing high-profile mayors. Labour now gains control of 8 councils, up to a total of 50. And good news for the Liberal Democrats. They have won more council seats overall than the Conservatives. More than 20 dogs have been seized today after police raided a suspected illegal XL bully breeding farm in Sheffield. 16 of the animals are now being looked after in police kennels after they were discovered in what officers described as appalling conditions. Sadly, 6 of those dogs were so unwell that they did have to be put to sleep. The breed, you may remember, was added to a banned list in October of last year following a series of attacks. Campaigners, though, say the ban is unlawful and irrational. Tens of thousands of homes in East Sussex are still without water, and that could last until at least tomorrow after a pipe there burst. Southern Water says the disruption in St Leonards-on-Sea and Hastings started on Thursday this week. The firm, though, says it is working tirelessly to get supplies back to properties. Residents, though, say it's been disastrous, and schools, a leisure centre and a theatre in the area have all been forced to close. And finally, if you've seen the film Snakes on a Plane, well, it almost became a reality last week after a man tried to board a flight with 2 reptiles stored somewhere, well, where they shouldn't have been. According to airport officers in Miami, he was stopped at security after they discovered the snakes were smuggled in the passenger's pants. Officers posted these photos, if you're watching on TV here, of those small creatures, reassuring, though, followers on social media that the animals, they say, were handed over to conservation experts. Sounds terribly uncomfortable. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code there on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, though, it's back to Mark.
I've got a snake in my trousers. Don't worry, it doesn't bite. Thanks, Sam, and welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In my Take at 10, Prince Harry returns to the UK next week. I'll surprise you by saying he should have a hero's welcome. Find out why in just a moment. Plus tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits. This evening, broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov, model and TV personality Diana Moran, and political commentator Benedict Spence. They'll be reacting to Sunday morning's front pages. Plus, Kinsey Schofield live from the United States with her reaction to all of the big royal and showbiz stories, including reports that Meghan Markle doesn't want to come to the UK next week for fear of being booed. Full reaction in 10 minutes' time. A packed hour. Those papers are coming, but first, my Take at 10. Let me tell you the story of the prodigal son from the Bible. In this parable, a father has 2 sons. The youngest son asks for his portion of inheritance early from his father, who grants his son's request. The son, however, is wasteful and extravagant and squanders his fortune, eventually becoming destitute. As a result, he eventually returns home empty-handed and begs his father to accept him back as a servant. To the son's surprise, he's not scorned or attacked or rejected by his father, but welcomed back with a huge celebration and a big party. Jealous and angry, the older son refuses to participate in the festivities. The father tells the older son, "You are ever with me, and all that I have is yours. But your younger brother was lost, and now he is found." Which takes me to Prince Harry. The parallels between the king's youngest son and his older brother William and this biblical story are very clear. In terms of the Windsors, the eldest stayed loyal to his father, with William serving out his royal duties with dignity, respect and application. He and his lovely wife Catherine have sired 3 beautiful children and are a credit to both their family and the nation. Meanwhile, we know about Harry, who absconded from this country and in his world privacy tour threw his country and his family under the bus with a series of highly damaging revelations in podcasts, on TV interviews and via that pathetic book Spare, the only useful function for which I have found is as a doorstop to prop open my bedroom door. Harry returns to the UK this week for the Invictus Games' 10th anniversary service, which is happening on Wednesday. But I think it's wrong that Harry will not be staying with his family at Buckingham Palace. I reflected on this issue on my show last night. We looked at his other accommodation options, which, let me tell you, aren't great. Harry will not be accommodated at Buckingham Palace, even though it's emptier than a branch of Wilko's. So, where is he going to stay? The Ritz? The Dorchester? Well, his media gigs are drying up, so he might have to go budget. He might like the Premier Inn, where he can bunk up with the face of that hotel chain, comedian Lenny Henry. What a laugh a minute those two would make. How about a Holiday Inn Express, where he can enjoy the wide-ranging choice offered by the vending machine if he gets peckish in the middle of the night. And I'm delighted to say that Britain's favourite pub chain, JD Wetherspoons, now have rooms available in some of their venues. The Hotel Wetherspoons, where you can check out any time you like, but you can't leave until you've drunk 12 pints of old speckled hen and got into a fight with an off-duty electrician. Wetherspoons Hotel, why not? Now, I think in spite of his previous crimes, I am mindful of the story of the prodigal son. Blood is thicker than water. In families, as in friendships, you must have forgiveness. I think that Harry should be staying at Buckingham Palace. He should be a guest of honour. He should be granted more than a blink and you'll miss it audience with his father, who, let's not forget, is battling cancer. They should be spending many hours together. And yes, he should have full royal protection with a SWAT team of armed cops. Why? Well, even though he walked away from this country and his royal duties, it wasn't his choice to be the king's son. Forgiveness doesn't come with qualifications or caveats. Forgiveness is unconditional. And whilst I don't anticipate Harry ever again becoming Britain's most popular royal, which he once was, I think it's time to find a way back for Harry. The less said about his wife Meghan, the better. It's my view that she has engineered this split from the start. But I've also always said that Harry is big enough and ugly enough to make his own decisions. No one made him do anything, even Meghan, and so he needs to take responsibility for what has happened. The first step would be to give up the podcasts, the tell-all books, the salacious TV interviews, and to focus on the projects that he does well, like the Invictus Games, and to try to win back the affection and respect of his family and ultimately of the nation. Harry is no angel, far from it, but it's time to welcome back Britain's prodigal son. Amen. There you go, that Catholic education wasn't wasted. My mother will be proud. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. Harry and I have had our differences over the years, but I think it's ridiculous that he'll be staying in a posh hotel. He should be at the palace. They've got empty rooms. It's his home. He should be coming home. Anyway, let's get reaction from my panel. Broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov, model and TV personality Diana Moran, and political commentator Benedict Spence. Benedict, your reaction to this story. I think that Harry deserves the 5-star treatment.
Well, I suppose there are parts of Buckingham Palace that might be a little bit dusty these days, but isn't the point actually that the size of the building is such that you could go and stay there and never have to bump into any of your relatives? So, I think, what is the point of having a royal palace on such a sort of a Titanic scale if you can't actually have some sort of, slightly less favourable members of the family sort of hidden away in a corner and they just kind of scuttle in and out as they please? I think that that's the point of having this palace on such a size and having, multiple palaces and country houses around the nation. This is the idea, that we can have all of these royals. They can all be sort of secluded away, and if necessary, they don't actually have to talk to each other.
Diana Moran, I don't think that my viewers and listeners will agree with me, but I think it's time for Britain to welcome home its prodigal son.
I don't want to welcome him home too much, too loudly, but I think I agree with Benedict that he could be squirreled away somewhere in Buckingham Palace or one of the many other palaces. But rather like the rest of your monologue there, I do agree. The prodigal son. I have two sons, and through thick or thin, I will always want to welcome them home, to see me, to spend time with me, and particularly in the case of King Charles not being well, I think it is rather important that Harry does spend some time with him. I was actually at the launch of the Invictus Games those 10 years or so ago. I adored Harry then. He was down there on the floor with the wheelchair people. He was just wonderful. It's just so sad that it's gone so wrong.
Nina Mishkov.
Well, you know, I have been a huge supporter of Harry and Meghan and continuously from the start. And their eviction from this country was down to a concerted effort from the palace in cahoots with the media. And they've done an absolutely brilliant job of destroying any relationship that Harry had with the British public. And I know one of the things you mentioned in your piece was how Harry was the most popular after the Queen, and that's one of the very reasons why he and Meghan couldn't stay, because they couldn't be seen to outshine William and Kate. That's one of the reasons, and also there's the Camilla factor to be taken into account. And Harry was thrown, as a young boy, was thrown under the bus by Camilla because Charles's huge thrust was to get Camilla accepted by the British public after the death of Diana. And that took years and years and years.
Nina, what have they given you in the green room? You're up a gum tree.
I'm not
Meghan
up a gum
and
tree.
Harry were not evicted. They left this country. They went to America. They did the podcast. They did the book. They did the Oprah interview. They threw this country under the bus.
In the Oprah interview, all that they said...
Pack of lies.
That's not a pack of lies. All they said in an hour-and-a-half interview was that somebody within the royal family had asked them what the colour of the skin of their baby was going to be. Now, that has not been denied, and I'm not even going to say who it was in the past that's been in the press.
Nina,
so that's all they said in an hour-and-a-half interview.
Let me give you this. There's a couple of messages from my viewers at gbnews.com/your say. Marilyn says, Mark, you've clearly not had the problem of a very nasty, cruel and vindictive member of your family doing appalling things to you. You really wouldn't be saying that. Beds and lying in them comes to mind. And Nina, Jack, who is a GB News member, has said, Harry cannot be trusted, full stop. His speeches about Camilla and Catherine were ugly. Mark, you are so wrong. There is no way back. And Jackie says, that's me, gone off Mark Dolan. Give Harry a hero's welcome. I don't think so, says Jackie. My viewers and listeners have spoken, Nina.
Well, they've done, as I say, the palace and the media have done an absolutely brilliant job. What about all of the death threats that Meghan got? They were really serious death threats.
Very serious.
People had been jailed. What about all of that? They got absolutely no support when it came to matters like that.
We don't know that.
All the attacks in the press that on a complete daily basis.
OK.
To boost Kate and to bull down Meghan.
Oh, blimey. I'm going to get the violins out, Diana Moran. Help me here.
Yes, the book. I mean, the terrible things
was
that
not
they wrote.
pathetic.
It was. Pathetic.
Are you saying, Diana, that he didn't write the truth?
I don't think it was necessary for him to write any of that at all. I think that we've always had the royalty shrouded in some pleasant mystery.
Diana, you've forgotten. His mother wrote a book, and his father Charles also did a book. He didn't author it, but it was authorised, and it was the Jonathan Dimbleby book. And both his parents did exactly the same thing. Charles talked about how the difficult situation was with his parents, with the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. Diana told what happened to her. So you cannot just lambast Harry for telling what happened to him.
OK, and last word, Diana.
Story.
I lambast him with Meghan's encouragement.
There you go.
See, the thing is, I find the attacks on Meghan, I find particularly spiteful. Not particularly you, Diana, but because I think it's sexist, because she's portrayed as the wicked woman who's stolen him away. In a way, it's like Yoko Ono and John Lennon. It's the same kind of attitude. You took him away from us, and it's really not like that.
OK, Diana, last word on this one.
I don't think I'm going to change my view. I think I would like to see Harry here for the games, and in that time, I think he should stay quietly in Buckingham Palace and see his father. OK, well, listen, folks, coming up next, as it's reported that Meghan Markle will not come to the UK next week for fear of being booed by British crowds. I'll get reaction from the Queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Schofield, plus some other big stories from the United States. That's next.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Do you mind if I ask you a little bit about Sebastian? It really amazes me how a mother who can lose a child in such a shocking and unexpected way, so little, so precious, can then turn that grief into something so positive. How did you find the strength to get up, get a camera crew, as you say, travel to the other side of the world and investigate all of this?
I was angry at Sebastian for dying. You know, you feel like saying, God, 32 years later, and I can still get very, very upset about it. I was angry that something that while he was born and lived with me and slept and then died, they were actively campaigning in New Zealand to try and stop this happening because they had a very high cot death rate there. They had the lady, the Anne Diamond, if you like, of New Zealand, a television presenter called Judy Bailey, went on telly every night and said, if you're just about to put your baby down to sleep, put him on his or her back, not the tummy, and this will help. And their cot death rate plummeted. And I went out to New Zealand and met her, and it was anger that drove me to come back and demand that we have the same advert here, the same campaign. And of course, I got all this complete nonsense from the Department of Health saying, you know, oh, young mothers do not watch television, I was told. In other words, while New Zealand mums were being told how to save their babies' lives, we actively denied British mums that advice during the time that Sebastian and others were dying.
And the other point, I suppose, to make is it's helpful to educate all generations, because when I had my babies, my mum would say, oh, he's not settling, just stick him on his tummy, he'll be much happier, that's what we did with you. And we had to say, well, things have changed, and, you know, but it's about educating everybody, because it's not just the mums that get their hands on the babies.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
It's time now for US News with the Queen of American showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, great to see you again. Well, it's a red letter day in the calendar. The Invictus Games. There is a special service in London on Wednesday. Harry will be there, but Meghan not.
Correct. Yes, sir. We understand that Meghan Markle will be sitting this one out. Richard Eden of the Daily Mail reporting that Meghan just simply doesn't feel like the bad press. She doesn't want to get booed. In 2021, I talked to Andrew Morton, who did a biography on Meghan Markle, and he told me something similar all the way back in 2021, that he really felt like Meghan would distance herself from the UK to avoid negative press and to avoid the public shaming.
Most definitely. I mean, in some ways, you have to feel sorry for her, don't you think? I mean, my viewer, Michelle, doesn't agree. She's just messaged at gbnews.com/your say. She isn't coming because the veterans don't want her there and the king wants nothing to do with her. Why is she always pretending to be the victim? What would you say to that?
Well, I don't think that the king would say that. I'm sure that they enjoy the lack of drama, but as we've seen over the last few years, his heart has softened quite a bit, especially when it comes to his son. And I don't think he'd say anything like that would hurt his son. That would intentionally hurt Prince Harry. And we don't know that the veterans don't want her there. I've not spoken to one veteran that says something like that. I think that I think that's just being petty. It's fair to say Meghan's popular. I think there's being rude and mean, and then there's being logical and factual. Meghan's poll numbers are not very good in the UK. She probably doesn't want the negative press. So she's going to skip and go to Nigeria, where she's going to get great press. And I think that that's fine. I don't think it's necessary to say that the king doesn't like her or that these, rogue veterans don't like her, because I haven't seen that written in print sourced 3 or 4 times anywhere.
Indeed. Now, Kinsey, do we know how much time Harry will be spending with his family on his visit to the UK? Is he going out for a few beers with William, for example? Are they going to slam a few at their local Wetherspoons?
I don't believe so, no, sir. So we know that the Duke of Sussex is likely to see King Charles, but the Prince of Wales, that's something that I would say is highly unlikely. It is being reported here in the States via Page 6 that Prince Harry invited both the Prince of Wales and King Charles to this Invictus service. They're calling it an olive branch, but I think we utilize that term a little too much. And it's my understanding that he's not getting a lot of feedback there, but perhaps we could see Princesses Beatrice or Eugenie there to support Prince Harry.
Now, William and Catherine have been through so much this year. And any developments on how William is coping with this huge responsibility of caring for his family whilst also fulfilling many royal duties?
Well, we did have a friend of theirs named Mia Arida talk to The Telegraph, and she said that she was so heartbroken over everything that had gone on and that they were going through hell, and that it was really a private and personal journey that they were experiencing. But we saw Prince William almost a week ago, so cute, so charming, joking about Jack Whitehall and dad jokes and showing off some of Charlotte's jokes. So when we do see him, he is, brave, strong, in great spirits. And we're not seeing any signs of defeat, which in my book is great news.
Most definitely. How's pop superstar Britney Spears doing?
It's been a tough week for Britney, Mark. She had settled this court case with her father. She was going after him because she felt like he mismanaged her money during that 13-year conservatorship. And he was going after her because he wanted her to continue to pay his legal fees. Now, Britney has settled this case. Her lawyer kind of branding it a victory. Now the conservatorship, everything is situated and taken care of. However, Britney feels very defeated at this moment in time because she was ordered by the court to pay millions of dollars to her father. So that was hit number 1. Hit number 2, we catch her via paparazzi coming out of the Chateau Marmont in Hollywood, barefoot, with a blanket wrapped around her, a pillow in her arms, sobbing. She had an incident there. She sprained her ankle. Apparently it was a head-on-head confrontation with her current boyfriend at the time, former felon, used to clean her house. Probably not my favorite dating pool. But and then Thursday, she wrapped up her most recent divorce. And so a lot of people right now looking at Britney saying, what's going on? Is this 2007 all over again? Really questioning the direction her life has gone post that, post her father taking over for her. I'm post her father having that much control over her life. Should somebody intervene is what they're asking.
Poor woman, we wish her well. Kinsey, no such problems for you. You remain the queen of US showbiz and royal reporting. We'll see you in a week's time. Do check out Kinsey's excellent podcast and website, both of which are called To Die For Daily. Brilliant stuff. Lots more to come. Next up, tomorrow's papers with full pundit reactions. See you in 2.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours or so, a bit of a north-south split with the weather cloudy and damp in the north, some clear spells leading to sunshine and showers in the south. So it's all thanks to low pressure dominating the weather pattern through the bank holiday weekend. This area of low pressure giving some longer spells of rain perhaps in the south on Monday, but through the rest of the evening and overnight, very slow changes with our weather. It stays cloudy across the northern half of the UK with outbreaks of rain. A few heavier bursts possible. Clearer south, generally dry. Some mist and fog patches forming under light winds. And then by the end of the night, this weather system moving into the southwest. And as we go through the day on Sunday, it just slowly pushes its way northwards, introducing some showery outbreaks of rain. Through the central swathe of the UK, it generally stays dry with some sunny spells. Cloudier further north. Drier though, but there will be a few heavy showers that develop, particularly across northeast Scotland. Temperatures generally in the range of 16 to 18, but locally 19 or 20 in the best of the sunshine. For Bank Holiday Monday, a bit of a mixed picture, some showery outbreaks of rain possible across southern counties of England. This trying to break up during the day into sunny spells and showers, and that's the forecast for many parts, sunshine and showers, temperatures lifting generally into the high teens once more. Tuesday into Wednesday, high pressure starts to build in, temperatures start to rise.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to my take at 10. I think that Prince Harry should be staying at Buckingham Palace when he returns to the UK this coming week. And I think he should spend time with his father and he should have a royal welcome. The majority of you don't agree. But John, no, not John, let's have a look. Ian has messaged the show, gbnews.com/yoursay. And he said, Mark, I agree. Being a black sheep myself, I was welcomed back into my family. Harry should be given the same opportunity. How about Jim, though? Jim's not pulling his punches. Jim says, good evening, Mark. Who cares about Harry and Meghan? This country has far bigger problems to grapple with than waste brain cells on this pair of self-indulgent, overprivileged nobodies. Jim, not sitting on the fence there. I'll get to more of your emails very shortly, but it's time now for this. Tomorrow's papers and the Eye weekend. Kevin Spacey, the American actor, accused by a young actor as he faces new allegations. The Mail, royal exclusive, just what the doctor ordered. Poll boost for Charles. The King receives a major vote of confidence tomorrow with news that the majority of Britons believe he is doing a very good job. A landmark poll to mark the first anniversary of Charles's coronation also shows a strong increase in support for the monarchy in the last 12 months. Oh dear, folks, here we go again. New Rayner bombshell. Neighbour to the police. I will tell the court that she was a landlady. That's a political scandal that won't go away. Sunday Express next. And look at this, free inside souvenir of historic year, an 8-page pullout celebrating a year since the King's coronation. And also, we are doomed. Lame duck PM loses Tory stronghold. Party in panic as Labour snatches top mayor job. Rishi Sunak's election woes deepened tonight after he suffered a humiliating defeat in a key Tory stronghold. Sunday Telegraph now. Labour wins in West Midlands and London. Andy Street loses by a handful of votes as Sadiq Khan wins a third term in the capital. Sunny Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, joined her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, and daughter Lady Louise Windsor and son James at the Royal Windsor Horse Show at Windsor Castle. And US shared gobsmacking COVID lab leak file with the UK. The United States shared extraordinary evidence with Britain at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic that suggested a high likelihood that the virus had leaked from a Chinese lab. Also, pharma giants knew that HIV was in NHS blood. Next up, The Observer. Starmer beaten Sunak should end purgatory of zombie rule. And last but not least for now, the Daily Star Sunday. Pop legend Gary Newman, my terror on the tube. Ghostly old bloke vanishes through brick wall. And Chaka Khan's being haunted as well. Pop superstar Gary Newman was left terrified by an encounter with a ghost on the London Underground when a scruffy old bloke in 1940s clothing vanished through a wall as the singer and a pal walked behind him. Curious stuff. I wonder what old Gary Newman has been drinking. But listen, let's get reaction to all of those stories from my top pundits tonight. For ringside action, we have broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov, model and TV personality Diana Moran, the Green Goddess herself, and the Navy Blue God, the one and only, the eye candy on tonight's show, Benedict Spence, who is a political journalist and broadcaster, and let's be honest, quite the looker. Now, listen, folks, let's get to a lot of the stories that need our attention. And I think we'll start with this one, if we could, Diana. Sunday Express, which is a paper normally supportive of the Conservatives and of Rishi Sunak. We are doomed. Lame duck PM loses Tory stronghold. Do you think it really is game over for the Tories? Is it RIP Rishi Sunak?
I've got a feeling it might be. I think we're living in very different times, and anybody who was a staunch Conservative for years and years and years has had their eyes open wide with all that's been going on here, and many of those other stories we've been talking about earlier on. I personally, if we're going to have him back again, I just want stronger police. That's the one that I'm particularly...
Law and order.
Yes, law and order. And when I was a child, I mean, I'm a lot older than most of you.
You might be, but you don't look older than us.
Well,
you look younger than us, which I find very unfair.
When we were younger, we really respected the police.
Yeah.
We weren't necessarily frightened of them.
And they were worthy of respect, Diana, which they aren't these days.
Exactly, Nina, yes.
They're not these days.
And that's the big thing that I would want to see changing for the good.
Well, most definitely. Do you think it's significant, Benedict, that the Sunday Express have written such a negative headline about the Prime Minister? They are pretty much stalwart Sunak supporters?
I think it is. I think it's interesting that the Mail, meanwhile, has completely ignored what's happening at the two sort of major tabloids that would lean Tory way. It's not great. I think everybody knew that a defeat was coming, but a lot of people were kidding themselves that it might not be quite so bad. We've had these discussions about how Labour would need a historic swing to actually get a majority come the next general election, but that doesn't mean that just because it would have to be historic doesn't mean that it isn't coming. Ultimately, we go on television every week, every sort of news show, everything is always talking about the same. Rishi Sunak promises this, Jeremy Hunt promises this. The dial doesn't move. Actually, the public are fed up and they don't believe anything that the Prime Minister or any of the ministers
will they have a different mindset when it's a general election and it's a choice of Prime Minister Starmer versus Prime Minister Sunak?
Well, it's a tricky thing because actually, if it is down to those two, I think people are going to pick Starmer. I think ultimately Rishi Sunak is not the person who's going to galvanise anybody at all.
Starmer versus Sunak. Sunak wins all day long.
I'm just waiting for reform.
Well, this
Where is Nigel? Where is Lee?
This is something.
Well, come on.
Seriously.
You were shaking your head at Starmer. Starmer actually is a strong politician. We need a complete change. We need to have the ship steadied. And, every audience, you watch Question Time on the BBC, you watch any programme where there's some idiot they've managed to get out of Tory headquarters to put himself up in front of, the lions, as
That's
it were.
That's very insulting, calling them an idiot.
Well, so many...
These are experienced public figures. Cabinet ministers.
Chris Philp the other day didn't know the difference between...
I actually thought he was rather unfortunate. Of all of them that they put up, I actually don't think he's the worst.
But he said, were the Congo and Rwanda different countries?
Oh, that was not a great moment.
Not a great moment. So I'm entitled to say idiots. And they put these people up, and the audience just loathes them. Every audience all around the country, they loathe
Because many would argue those audiences are full of lefties.
No,
and they're horribly unbalanced.
They balance them pretty carefully. They do. They have to.
Do you think the Question Time audience is balanced?
Well, no. But this is actually slightly more prescient, as you mentioned, reform. Reform haven't done very well in these local elections either. And so the suggestion, therefore, that there is an insurgency on the right, it hasn't manifested itself. And that's not to say that people aren't crying out for that, but I think it's a really damning indictment of Reform. Look, the Tories are right there for the taking, and Reform were unable to take second place in Blackpool at the by-election there. They've not been able to take councils. There's been no question about
Lib Dems have got more councillors than the Conservatives. But I was going to say...
The Women's Equality Party, I think, has got more councillors than the Reform has.
If you look
That's
at
how bad it is.
That Andy Street is obviously a very good man, a very good mayor, and wasn't he the boss of John Lewis a few years ago?
Correct.
Excellent man, and even he cannot stand against the tide. And the other one, Houchen, in Teesside, he only pretty much won because he was a local choice, but his campaign literature was green, it was nothing blue. He forgot, quote unquote, to wear his blue rosette. So he just completely...
And didn't mention Rishi Sunak in his victory speech.
They didn't let anybody in to come...
But Diana, why aren't Reform UK cutting through?
I don't know. I wish they would. I'm behind them. At least I'd like to be behind them. Tell Nigel to gather his troops up and be the figurehead.
Does Nigel need to replace Richard Tice as the leader of Reform UK?
I'm afraid he does.
All right, and why would that help?
Well, because Farage is such a person who can speak to so many people. He gets his point across. I admire the man. I've worked with him on GBNews, which is very nice, as I have done Lee as well. So... I know they probably won't get there. It's between these two big parties, I suppose, but...
But I think Diana raises a good point, Benedict. Nigel Farage, the most consequential politician of his generation, arguably. Not a politician now, he's a broadcaster. But if he were to re-enter politics, could he once again change the political map?
I think the difficulty with Reform that it faces is Reform is the Brexit Party, which was UKIP. It's just an evolution of that. And what made them successful was not standing on a national platform of having XYZ multiple policies across all. It was on single-issue campaigning. They were very successful. Just saying we're not the Tories is not enough of a single issue, and just saying immigration is not a big enough single issue to get you to supplant them. You need, I think, a lot more cut-through, and realistically, I don't think that if you were to ask the average person what does Reform stand for, apart from immigration, and they're not the Tories, they'd probably not really be able to tell you what
But
their
is that
policy
not
is,
an
because
insult?
reform sounds nice.
Is that not
but
an insult to my viewers and listeners, many of whom support Reform UK, because they will stop the boats, they will cut taxes, they will reduce net immigration, they will cut waste in the NHS, they will shrink the state. I've got a list as long as your arm of policies that they would have.
With the best will in the world, GB News viewers are political junkies. They're people who are taking they take an active interest in politics, and they can't get enough. That's why they're watching us.
Well,
they are not the everyman. They're not the average voter. They're not the floating voter. Actually, these are people who pay more attention to what their politics are and care a lot more. But the average person is not going to be switched on 24/7 to the minutiae of different political parties. They need a broader picture, and it only needs to be sort of 3, 4, 5. That's why Rishi Sunak, of course, picked 5 things. Foolish, because that was too many things that he could actually get on top of. But you need a couple of things that you're able to pinpoint which party is, for each thing. And really, I don't think Reform cuts through beyond the sort of the politically aware. I really don't think they have that sort of purchase power just yet. I think this election cycle has come too soon for them. It might come in 5 years' time, but really, you've got to look at it this way. From where they started, actually, they're doing very well. But from what they want to be, they're not doing very well. And given what their opponents are, they really should be doing a lot better.
John Andrews, who is a GB News member, has messaged us at gbnews.com/your say. Come back, Nigel Farage, save this country and team up with Donald Trump. Diana raises...
God. Oh, God.
Oh, dear. Poor...
I love it.
Pauline has been triggered by that one. Trish says Diana raises a very good point about Reform UK. They are the real Tories, says Shirley Watson. I'll get to more of your comments shortly. But some very good news for the King, Nina Mishkov. Let's have a look at this story, which can be found in the
Mail on Sunday.
Mail on Sunday, thank you so much. Got too many bits of paper here. Just what the doctor ordered. Poll boost for Charles, who is enjoying unprecedented popularity, as is the monarchy, a year on from his accession to the throne.
I saw a different poll about a week ago, and they're not doing that great, and particularly amongst younger people. Most young people don't give a hoot one way or the other.
Nina, have you got to be such a party pooper?
No.
Look at the year our King's had. You want to dwell on negative headlines? This is the latest poll. Let me give you the stats on it. The monarchy's popularity up in the last 12 months. A poll conducted by the Mail on Sunday. A clear majority of the public now want to keep the monarchy with strong support for our new king.
Well, I think he's doing wonderfully well just at the moment. I know he's in bad health, but because he's appearing in public and he's smiling and joking, I think he's doing a wonderful job.
Nina.
Well, he's waited so long for the top job, and it seems a very cruel twist of fate that he should be struck down with an illness like this.
I agree.
And even I, who had absolutely no time for him from the Diana years onwards, can see that he's an intelligent man. He's thinking, he cares, and he does his best. As I say, the woman by his side, I have nothing good to say about. But
well, yes, let's come to that actually, because you drew our attention to this story earlier in the day with my brilliant team.
Yep.
The two Daniels, Ben and Noah. Let me just log into this. Queen or Queen Consort? Sorry, let me call the story up. Inside the debate over Camilla's title, you don't like to use the term Queen about Camilla, do you?
No, because the real Queen, the Queen, wanted Camilla, grudgingly gave Camilla, or maybe not grudgingly, I don't know, but ultimately gave Charles the right to call Camilla the Queen Consort. She didn't say the Queen. And the Times today had a rather good piece about the machinations inside the palace, where different camps within the palace were discussing how best to creep this in to the public, to see if the public would buy it or not. They said, with the coronation coming up, it's now or never. And it just shows you how these things work. And it's the same workings that they did with Harry and Meghan, in that different teams work out how best, where they're going to place pieces with favoured journalists, creep it out through the media and see what the public reaction is. So it was one of those things that had to be... the original idea was that Camilla was supposed to be HRH, a princess and never being called Her Majesty. This was ultimately raised to Queen Consort. And as soon as the Queen died, they worked to get the Queen.
Well, Diana,
I
think
like
that since Charles's coronation, I think that Camilla has demonstrated that she is a queen in more than just name only.
I've met Camilla many times in another way of part of my life, the Royal Osteoporosis Society, and I have great admiration for her. I think she has made Charles the man that he now is. She's given him the confidence. I know there's all the business that went on in the years beforehand, but I'm talking about now, and a man who's unwell at the moment. He's got this woman by his side, whatever we're going to call her.
What do you call her?
She's supporting him. Well, I have been calling her the Queen.
And are you comfortable with that title?
I was surprised when I first did it, but yes.
You've grown into it.
The fact of the matter is, I mean, I'm sure she's charming. I've heard from Jilly Cooper years and years and years what a great hoot she is, what a great, fag in a hand, gin, blah, 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 jokes. Great company. Terrific. But that is not, to me, the Queen.
Wow, well, damning words. Really briefly, if you can, before we get to the break, Benedict. US shared gobsmacking COVID lab leak file with the UK. Now, this was during the pandemic when those who suggested that COVID may have leaked from a Chinese lab in Wuhan were called conspiracy theorists and flat earthers. Once again, the lockdown sceptics have been proved right.
It's very unfortunate, that whole period of time that actually so many people were smeared, because actually some very respectable scientists, this is the thing, this wasn't, sort of amateur behaviour at all. There's many respected scientists were saying, look, this is what is being researched in this part of the world. Actually,
it's logical.
In that town.
It's been raised many times that certain safety protocols are not always adhered to. Perhaps this needs to be investigated. But the problem was, of course, in order to sort of cooperate, everybody wanted to keep on very friendly terms with the Chinese government. And if the Chinese government said this absolutely didn't happen, far too many people were happy to just go along with that for the sake of expediency. And I think that's pretty disgraceful in looking at hindsight.
Most definitely. People who criticise those lockdowns, which have, in my view, destroyed the country, have been proved right. And the lab leak theory now looks like the most likely source. But will we ever get justice? Will the Chinese ever pay the price? I won't hold my breath. We've got lots more to come. More front pages, plus this in the Telegraph. Tomorrow's Telegraph, Suella Braverman, former Home Secretary, says the Tories must change course or be wiped out. We'll explain how she thinks that can be done next.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I don't think you can go and watch a Shakespeare play unless you already know it. It's almost like you have to understand the story and the characters, and perhaps have even done a bit of reading into it. Because if you went completely blind, especially in today's world where we don't speak in that kind of way, it is, I think, probably a bit alienating.
But Dawn is saying it is alienating at the moment because of the lack of representation.
You know what, the actual phrasing they use, right, OK, the disproportionate representation propagated white, able-bodied, heterosexual, cisgender male narratives. I'm sure there's people sitting in a room going, what's the most ridiculous thing we can come up with today?
Yes.
But really, just chuck all these words at it, cisgender, and it's just insane. Of course, Shakespeare was what it was back in the day, and that's why it's mostly blokes and they're mostly white.
And lots of speculation that he was actually gay, isn't there? Because he never really saw Anne Hathaway very often and stayed away a lot of the time. I don't know, maybe he was a big
He might have
gay
been
icon.
transgender for all I know. I mean, I don't...
Biggins, I'm looking at you.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think that goes for the profession too. I mean, I do think I mean, I remember seeing Macbeth in London with Judi Dench and Ian McKellen, and it was one of the most exciting evenings ever. and it was a cold night at the Donmar Theatre, outside and inside, and that gave it atmosphere. There are certain things, and then you go along and see something else, and you think, I'll walk out in the interval.
Yeah. Macbeth is a sexy play, though.
Let's talk about, there's so many. Can I Live to Be 100?
Oh, this is depressing.
I think it is depressing. I like to stay here now. I don't want to live to 100.
don't say that. I'm right behind you.
I don't even want to. My father died at 63. That'll be me gone this year.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
More front pages. The Sunday Mirror is in, hot off the press. Duke's estate in disrepair. Prince could be evicted over the crumbling state of the Royal Lodge. Andrew's ruin is the headline. The Duke of York signed a deal agreeing to pay for the upkeep of the Royal Lodge in Great Windsor Park so he could stay in the 30-room mansion. But photos show peeling paintwork and cracked brickwork on at least one building on the 90-acre estate. A royal source has said its state will be of great concern to the king. He will be alarmed. And the Sunday Times, defeat for Street boosts Starmer's hopes. Number 10, that's Andy Street, who is ousted as the Conservative mayor of West Midlands. Also, our most amazing Daniel, the parents of Daniel and Jorin. A tragic story. This 14-year-old died in a sword attack in East London. And the parents said they had lost the most loved and amazing son. Daniel's favourite club, Arsenal, paid tribute to him. A beautiful child and a tragic loss. OK, and Suella Braverman in the Telegraph, tomorrow's Sunday Telegraph. The Tories must change or be wiped out. It's time to wake up, says Braverman. These results will look like a tremor next to the earthquake due on general election night. And do you want to know what her solution is? Well, she says this in the paper. On tax, migration, the small boats and law and order, we need to demonstrate strong leadership, not managerialism, she says. Make a big and bold offer on tax cuts rather than tweaking, as we saw in the budget. Place a cap on legal migration once and for all. Leave the ECHR to stop the boats. Tangible improvement to our NHS. Tougher sentences for criminals. Start holding failing police chiefs to account so that antisocial behaviour, shoplifting and knife crime are sorted out. Take back control of our streets from the extremists, and instead of paying lip service in guidance on transgender ideology in schools, let's actually change the law to ban the abuse of our children. Well, that sounds like a manifesto people would vote for, but it's not the Tory manifesto. Is it, Benedict?
And also, I don't see how on earth they're going to get any of that in place in time for it to actually make the blindest bit of difference. The first thing I have to say is that although there are many people who do feel that the Conservatives haven't gone far enough to the right on certain issues, the very fact that Sir Keir Starmer is going to be the next Prime Minister does rather suggest that actually people do not want a government to veer to the right on all of these things. Some things maybe, but actually what they want, I'm afraid I have to disagree with Suella Braverman. They do want a bit of managerialism because they think that things don't work. That's the key thing that we get from all of these pledges that are coming from Rishi Sunak or whoever, is that people simply do not believe that the Tories will get these things to work. What they want is competence. And the Tories could be to the centre, they could be to the right. Well, they will not get any more votes without some sign that what they're getting is competence. That's why they're losing.
A couple of seconds, managerialism, that's a dig at Rishi Sunak, isn't it?
It's absolutely.
But what we need is a decent Home Secretary. And, oh dear, wasn't she the Home Secretary?
Yes. Nicely done. Diana, the Duke's estate in disrepair, Andrew's ruin. This is embarrassing for the King and for Andrew.
This is really awful, isn't it? Here is this guy, this disgraced guy, living with his ex-wife, having a lovely, seeming to have a lovely way of life there, gorgeous part, and they can't even look after the place properly. disgusting.
It's a national shame, isn't it, what's happened?
National shame, and Harry and Meghan booted out of Frogmore Cottage, for which they paid millions in upkeep.
There you go. Well, fair play to my brilliant pundits tonight. Diana Moran, Benedict Spence and Nina Mishkov, thank you so much for your company. Most importantly, thank you to you for your company, and also my team who worked so hard today. A brand new team who did an excellent job, and I couldn't have done it without you. Listening on the radio, watching at home, or indeed at work. Mark Dolan tonight returns tomorrow for My Big Opinion, My Take at 10, Mark Meets the Papers, My Top Pundits, and much more. It's been a really lively show. Thanks for your feedback. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Headliners is next.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Children's stories like Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland now come with a trigger warning at universities, alerting readers to possible themes of white supremacy.
Yes, these warnings are being applied to colonial narratives, that's the claim, commonly found in adventure stories and famous novels from the Victorian era. Well, joining us now is the actor Charlie Lawson. And Charlie, these warnings have been applied to Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. What's this university getting at?
Well, look, first of all, this is nothing new. We hadn't heard about it for a while. Universities have been doing this over the last couple of years. I remember having a chat with one of your colleagues. But when Gabriella, the lovely Gabby, phoned me up today, I had to beg her to put me on after 9 o'clock because I found myself getting rather irate about the whole thing. But I will do my best to be very polite.
Yes, keep it clean.
Yes, look, which is quite difficult for me, as you'll appreciate, over this subject. Look, this is universities just jumping on the same trying to be relevant bandwagon. Is it any wonder that we look at the quality of graduates from university, and in my humble opinion, some of them are slightly disappointing. But I did phone a couple of people I knew who had sons and daughters at various leading universities, and they had been speaking this morning. And thank the Lord, they think it's a complete load of bloody nonsense, as I do. Give the C.S. Lewis Centre a ring in East Belfast, because that's where your man came from. And I think you'll find you'll get short shrift, because we're not all about that in East Belfast. We don't censor anything.
A very good evening. You're watching and listening to GB News. I'm Sam Francis. The headlines at 11 o'clock. Labour have secured a shock win in the West Midlands mayoral contest after a partial recount earlier. Their candidate Richard Parker defeated his Conservative opponent Andy Street by just 1,500 votes. Speaking after his win in Birmingham earlier, he said that the result shows people are calling for Labour and calling for change. Well, it means Labour have now claimed all but one of the positions up for grabs in the mayoral elections in England and Wales. In London earlier, Sadiq Khan won a record third term as mayor, with a majority of 275,000 votes over the Conservative candidate Susan Hall.
It's Londoners who inspire me every day to continue our mission of building a fairer, safer and greener London. And in what I hope will be a year of great change, a future Labour government led by Keir Starmer working with us in City Hall will mean we can go much further and accomplish so much more.
In other news today, tributes have been paid to Daniel Angerin during Arsenal's Premier League match against Bournemouth. The 14-year-old was killed on his walk to school by a man wielding a samurai sword in Hainault in London on Tuesday. The club, who the teenager supported, showed his picture on the big screen today at the Emirates Stadium, and a minute's applause was held during the 14th minute of the match. Marcos Monzo, a Spanish-Brazilian dual national, was charged with murdering the teenager, and he appeared in court earlier this week. Tens of thousands of homes in East Sussex are still without water tonight after a pipe burst. Southern Water say the disruption in St Leonards-on-Sea and in Hastings started on Thursday. The firm, though, insists it is working tirelessly to get supplies back to properties. Residents, though, say it's been disastrous. A school, leisure centre and theatre in the area have been forced to close. Pro-Palestinian students are continuing their protests at various universities across the country. It follows violent demonstrations at some campuses in the US. Sit-in camps and anti-Israel banners have been set up at some universities in protest against Israel's war with Hamas. It includes students in Bristol, in Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle and in Sheffield, where they're camping out in tents outside their campus buildings. And finally, flying with a pet can be a hassle, but flying with reptiles can be an even bigger headache. But one man tried to get around the problem by boarding a plane with 2 snakes stored, well, somewhere they shouldn't have been. According to airport officers in Miami, staff discovered the creatures smuggled in the passengers' pants. Officials posted photos of the small creatures on social media and reassured followers that the animals were handed over to conservation experts. Well, safe to say, it's probably not the best place to transport snakes. Those are the headlines. Plenty more to come over the next hour with headliners. In the meantime, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen, taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour. I'm joined by the face that launched 1,000 ships, Cressida Wetton, and a face that sank a few vodkas, Bruce Devlin.
It's gin.
Is it gin?
Yeah.
I just can't tell. It looks
Large
the same.
gins.
Seems believable. I also hear that's what you actually did. As much as that was a joke, last night was a big one.
I've seen bigger.
I
I've
went
had
home
bigger.
at sensible o'clock, and this one went out to have an altercation with a drag queen because he was giving unsolicited makeup advice.
That's true, actually, yes. But no, we were both in Leeds for a gig, and actually it marks our first anniversary of us being colleagues, playmates and husband and wife.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank
you have
you.
a lot in common.
We do.
Taste in men.
Yes.
Right, let's crack on then. Let's take a quick look at Sunday's front pages. We start with the Mail on Sunday. Just what the doctor ordered. Poll boost for Charles. The Sunday Telegraph says Labour wins in West Midlands and London. The Observer goes with Starmer. Beaten Sunak should end purgatory of zombie rule. The Express says we're doomed. Lame duck PM loses Tory stronghold. The Sunday Mirror says